Welcome to my first vlog post. We're going to do a little Q&A. I'm going to have my lovely off-camera host here ask me a few questions, and hopefully it can kind of flow with how the game kind of progressed today.
So how was the game? Let's give your first impressions and thoughts.
There was rust. I thought, obviously, starting the first game. So with that being said, you really get to see how the team kind of develops. So I think early on it was rust. I think on both the offense and defensive side. So early on, I just think that as the team got back out there with no preseason, with nothing like that, I think that they did a good job of maintaining themselves and keeping the game within close early on, and held the Giants to minimal points early.
So who pissed you off the most of the Steelers players? Because clearly you're a Steelers fan. And who are you most proud of?
I'm most pissed off about James Conner. There's high hopes for him. He came in. He was a much decorated collegiate player. Of course, you battle cancer, you win. But he doesn't want to be known for that. So I can't judge him based off of that. I'm going to judge him based off of how he wants to be judged. And right now, he's not a very good. You're no good for the team when you're not on the field. And right now, he's not being good for the team. So the Steelers have to make a conscious decision on what they're going to do at the running back position. Mike Tomlin, right before the season started, called James Conner the bell cow. But really, is he? So is he the bell cow? Because Benny Snell came in and did exactly what he was supposed to do. So James Conner is probably the one that made me most upset. The player that got me most excited was probably Ben. On defense, if I was going to pick two, it'd be Bud Dupree. I thought he took advantage of the Giants' sliding coverage to T.J. Watt's side, and he took advantage of tight ends not being blocked. And he showed the Giants that if you don't block me, I'm going to tackle everything. So he's my defensive. Offensively, it's Ben. You sit out a year, you watch your team struggle, you watch your team miss the playoffs, and you watch the demise of your relationship with AB. You watch Le'Veon Bell leave, and you have all these things moving on around you. You miss that season, and then you have to watch your team. To come back, I think and early on he showed a lot of rust, but that should be anticipated. He hasn't played football in a year. But to finish the game 21-32, 220, 30 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interception. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better. If somebody scripted and told you that, they would be excited, like, oh, we probably won the game by a lot. And which they did. They won by double digits. So Ben was probably my offensive player of the game.
So how do you think the team performed overall under the coach's direction, and how do you think they should have performed against the Giants?
I think the coaching staff did a good job. They made a lot of in-game adjustments. There's no preseason game, so there's really no tape. The Giants are a young team. They have a new coach, new coaching staff. So they were coming out, and anything that they kind of shared early on was something new that maybe the Steelers didn't see before. Jason Garrett's their offensive coordinator. So, the Steelers are a little bit more familiar with him with his years in Dallas. So coming here, they probably had an idea, watched some Giants old tape, and kind of really got a feel for Jason Garrett. But I think the coaches did a good job of in-game adjusting and, keeping the tone of the players high. Mike Tomlin is an energy guy. And I'm sure enough that he was, constantly in his teammates, in his players' ear, making sure that they're in their teammates' ear to make sure that, as a team, they're collectively in this, letting you know that it's one drive at a time, whether you're offense or defense. The Giants, they're a young team. They're going to make a lot of mistakes early on. Their quarterback's young, running back's young, wide receiver's young, their coach is young, the whole team is young. But as far as an opponent goes, they're a formidable opponent. I think with more years underneath their belt, with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, that game will be completely different 3-4 years from now. Tonight, I just think that their youth showed. They were scripted early on, which got them on schedule. But as the game kind of progressed and the Steelers kind of made their adjustments, the Giants were incapable of making their own. So I just think that that's just being young with those guys. I think as the year goes on, they're going to be a formidable opponent So as for the Steelers, I think that this was a good starting game to kind of get their feet underneath them. And for the Giants, this is a good measuring stick. It's a good opportunity to measure yourself up against Pittsburgh Steelers who are going to make a deep run in the playoffs. So I think it's a good measuring stick for them. I expect a very good year that many won't expect from the Giants. But I fully expect that this Steelers team is a playoff contender of epic proportion. You're talking about AFC championship game caliber team this year.
So what's next for the Steelers' next game against the Broncos?
So the Broncos playing on Monday night. We'll get to see the result of that game here in a little bit. And Drew Lock, they lost Von Miller for the year, so that's a big blow. It's a good thing for the Steelers fans, myself included, because that takes some pressure off of Ben. And when you lose a playmaker like that, it's kind of hard to kind of replace him. But we'll see. This Drew Lock offense, he was very efficient last year. John Elway, of course, has been looking for a quarterback. But I expect the Steelers defense, this being a home opener, I expect them to come out with the same amount of, I expect TJ Watt to come out pissed off. He didn't have, I would call, a very average game. He did have a pick, but for the most part, he was very well neutralized for most of the game. Giants league coverage. So I expect him to come out with much needed vigor. Steve Nelson gave up some plays today, so I expect defensively for them to kind of fix and tweak some of those things. But against the Denver Broncos, I expect the same thing that I've seen today from the Giants. The Denver Broncos are exactly the same. They're a young team. They're probably a more seasoned coaching staff, but I still expect their young players. The Steelers are going to mix up coverage, try to confuse Drew Lock, and make him throw some areas that he's not anticipating. So I'm excited for the game next week. We'll see how it goes. Here we go.